Howdy folks, and welcome back to War Thunder with the mighty Jingles. It's realistic battle time, the artist formerly known as historical battles. Realistic battle mode in War Thunder is an entirely different kettle of fish to arcade battles. The main attraction of flying in realistic battle mode is that the aircraft actually perform the way you would expect the aircraft to handle in real life. Aircraft that had certain advantages over their opponents in realistic battle mode actually have those advantages, whereas you just don't in arcade. Realistic battle mode is for those of you who have face-palmed in disbelief when you've dived on a Lag 3 in a BF-109, not finished him off in your first pass, gone vertical, opened the throttle to zoom away from him, only to find that the Lag 3 pulls a 180 degree turn, hammers his throttle open, slots in on your tail, catches up with you, and then shoots you down. Or for all those of you who have actually been outmaneuvered in a dogfight by a bomber while flying a fighter, and just planted your face into your desk in sheer disbelief, realistic battles is probably for you. The other attraction, certainly for me, and probably for a lot of the people who are playing realistic battles, is that the amount of douchebaggery is, well, it's not necessarily lower, although I suspect it is, but it's a lot more spread out, because the maps in realistic battles are so much bigger. And that means that the airspace on the tail of enemy aircraft isn't nearly as crowded and congested as it can get, and therefore dangerous to your own health from friendly fire from your own team, purely and simply because of the size of the maps and the relatively low density of player to airspace in a realistic battle map. Means that you usually get the time and space on the tail of an enemy fighter to do the business without being clustered by the rest of your team. And so what you tend to find is the kind of players that you get in a realistic battle are the people who understand the aircraft they're flying, they understand the aircraft they're flying against, they have at least a basic knowledge of proper air combat maneuvers, and they're flying in realistic because they can use that knowledge, and it will work in realistic in a way that it just doesn't really work in arcade. Arcade is very frustrating for these kind of players because nothing handles the way it should. If you want that kind of experience, you need to be flying realistic. Now, that's not to say that you don't get douchebags and arseholes in realistic. You do. But, well, just have a look at the size of the real estate I'm flying across. It's a lot harder to be a douchebag when the nearest member of your own team is 6 kilometers away. And the amount of space and distances involved in realistic also mean it's a lot harder to be an accidental douchebag. Just flying recklessly and doing something stupid and being a danger to your own team is not as much of a threat than it is in the crowded airspace of an arcade battle. Of course, the downside of realistic battles is that there is all this space in a realistic battle. It does take a long time to get to the action, and it's a different kind of excitement than you get the pulse-pounding, white-knuckle adrenaline ride that you get in an arcade battle. And I'm not knocking arcade battles here. I do enjoy a good arcade domination match. It's a completely different kind of exciting to a good realistic battle. In realistic battle, the satisfaction comes from planning your approach and executing your attack, and you do get the time to do that in realistic battle in a way that you just don't in arcade. Of course, that is one of the chief attractions of arcade, however, the fact that it is much, much more down to reactions and, to a degree, instinct. In arcade, it's almost like playing a Twitch shooter. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is definitely a huge part of the attraction of flying arcade battles. But there's unarguably a completely different skill set required in realistic. In realistic, it's knowledge of the aircraft that you're flying and flying against, superior tactics and superior teamwork make a much, much bigger difference than just sheer reactions and instinct do in arcade. I'd even go so far as to say that the differences between the two game modes are so extreme that you may as well be flying a different game. Technically, they're both War Thunder, but it's like trying to compare Operation Flashpoint to Call of Duty. The two modes are just that different from each other. So what you've seen here is, certainly for me at least, a typical realistic battle. Heavily edited. I cut out most of the flying time, but it literally was 10 to 12 minutes of flying and positioning just to get myself into the position that I needed to be in to kill one enemy fighter. You ain't going to see me getting any of those 10 kill airstreaks in a realistic battle. The value, as far as credits and XP are concerned, of the kills that you get is worth a lot more in realistic. But a 10 kill streak in arcade is about the equivalent of a 4 or 5 kill streak here in realistic. You see anybody in realistic getting 4 or 5 kills, they are damn good. But the kills in realistic are just so much more satisfying because you have to work that much harder to get them. Now, you've probably already made your mind up whether or not this appeals to you, and if it doesn't, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Arcade has its own attractions, and there's nothing wrong with them. But if you're looking for more of a challenge in War Thunder, or perhaps, like me, you're sick and tired of the gross imbalance of War Thunder ground strike maps, or you're just tired of the rampant douchebaggery that does infest War Thunder arcade battles, and you want to play with the kind of player who is there more for the joy of flying rather than the joy of being an arsehole, stay tuned. Realistic battles could be for you. So in this one I'm flying the BF-109F2, and it's in the Operation Sicily event. The events are something that were thrown into the game a couple of patches ago, and they're kind of like instant action, realistic and simulator battles. They're accessible straight from the hangar loading screen, and they're more realistic in that the range of aircraft that are actually available for you to fly are limited to those aircraft that actually took part in the operation concerned. One of the other things about War Thunder is that, I don't know if you can see it, just over at the leading edge of that cloud bank I spotted a dot. All aircraft in the game are modelled and rendered at all ranges, regardless of whether or not anybody has actually spotted them and designated them as a target. Even if they're outside your pilot's keen vision range, you can still see enemy aircraft and adjust your tactics accordingly. Now I've lost sight of them again, but there was definitely some enemy aircraft. There he is, up high. That's the guy I spotted. It was a Spitfire. Alright, not a massive fan of these odds. There's a Spitfire up there, there's a P-40 down there, and another Spitfire down there. Spitfire up high is heading my way. Okay, oh, there's another one coming in. I'm going to dive on this guy. The BF-109 does have far superior dive performance than a Spitfire. And try to do some damage and keep going. I'll go for this B-25 now. And just outrun them. The benefit of doing this is, one, there we go, he's never going to catch me, not on a dive. Not only am I getting away from these guys, oh, killed his tail gunner, but I'm also flying towards friendly aircraft. And there you go, look at the distance. The Spitfires are never going to catch a BF-109 F2 in a dive. Put that speed to use. Regain the altitude. So I've damaged two aircraft, Spitfire and a B-25. B-25's in all kinds of problems. But that's a whole mess of enemy fighters coming in. So, while heading back into that lot is going to be dangerous, there's a whole mess of our fighters also getting stuck into that big old furball down there. So, I've managed to regain altitude, my speed is good, I can now put that altitude. There's another crit on the B-25, looks like he's only flying on one engine. I just killed one of his gunners and somebody else finishes him. So, okay, good, there's an assist. And again, use that speed to brake, gain separation on that big old mess of enemy fighters. Stay high. Staying high is energy in the bank. You can rapidly turn that energy into speed again. Consider who you're going to go for next. So I'm going to keep an eye on that bow fighter. And if he is making himself a target, he's going after something. Ground target? Nope, friendly fighter, but allows me to slot in perfectly on his tail. Careful with the speed, don't want to overshoot him, but he's probably going to try to outrun me. Bow fighter is very powerful. He's going high, it's going to bleed his speed off, and I am at the perfect range to really ruin his day. The mistake he made there was trying to climb. He built up all that speed in the dive, he should have kept going and tried to just outrun me. Bowfighter's a powerful aircraft, he might have been able to do it, but instead threw the speed and energy away and tried to outclimb me, when I was also in a very high energy state from building up all the speed that I gained diving on him. In arcade, he could have gotten away with that, but not in realistic. Now this is where I throw it all away. Meeting that P40 was a mistake. P40 got monstrously lucky, but he only got monstrously lucky because I let him. He was bleeding energy while climbing up towards me. I was at a higher altitude than him. I had more potential energy. Instead of getting into a head-on pass with him, which I should have won, but more on that in a moment, what I should have done was gain more altitude myself, wait for him to bleed off and approach stall speed, and then loop over and dive on him again when he was at his most vulnerable, denying him the opportunity to point the nose of his aircraft at me. Instead, I thought to myself, well, 50 caliber machine guns versus 30mm cannons. I went into a head-on. Now, I should have won the head-on. That guy opened fire with 50 caliber machine guns at 900 meters range. But throw enough shit at the wall and some of it is going to stick. If there's lead in the air and it hits something in the right spot, that can happen. I was planning on opening up at around about 400 meter range, and instead, well, I lost my wings. He got lucky. It can happen. But he only got lucky because I allowed myself to be put into the position where luck becomes a factor. So, anyway, I'm dead, he isn't. So, it's no use crying about it. So we're spectating this battle now for the rest of it. And paying attention to a couple of players in particular. Snowman here, in his BF-109 G6. He's angling for a shot on this Spitfire. But he's not doing it alone, because he's flying in a squad with his buddy Juggernaut 266. In a BF-109 G2 Tropical. And you're going to notice Snowman doing something that I really should be doing, but don't. And numerous people have told me to do this in various comments on my videos. At the first, I thought he was out of cannon ammunition, but he isn't. He's got his cannons and machine guns mapped to separate buttons. He uses the machine guns at long range, because he's got plenty of ammunition for those. And when he's sure of the kill, that's when he switches to cannons. So that's something that I should be doing, and I haven't done it yet, because I'm a noob. Shortly afterwards, see him going for a bow fighter. Now the bow fighter seems to be concentrating on that MC-202. And unfortunately, nobody really has much of an energy advantage here. And there aren't many aircraft that you want to be getting into a turning fight with in a BF-109. The bow fighter, however, is probably one of them. Especially when the bow fighter has got his attention occupied with all sorts of other fighters. And when you're working together with a squad mate, you see Snowman is staying on the guy's tail, and Juggernaut keeps trying to go high and get the diving kill on him. But since neither of them has the energy advantage, this bowfighter isn't dumb enough, unlike the one I shot down, to try to go into a climb and zoom away from a BF-109. Instead, he's using his power advantage to just open up the distance in the horizontal. The problem that that bowfighter is going to have is here comes another BF-109 from altitude. The bowfighter has no energy in the bank now. He's fully extended, BF-109 on his tail, he panics, he tries to climb, and boom, headshot. Here's another player. This is Sana 5, same game. A couple of seconds later, he's angling for a kill on a P40. Again, he's got the altitude advantage. There's the P40. Left it a little late there. He's damaged the P40. He's trailing smoke. Doesn't try to get into a turning fight. It's all about exploiting the advantages that your aircraft has. He started from a position of superior energy. He had the altitude advantage over the P40. He dived on him. He fired one burst, did his damage, put that speed to use, turned it straight back into altitude. Sets himself up for another attack run. Breaks off. AI P38. And he's got the kill. P40 just crashed. I find the thing about realistic battles, if you're no good in arcade battles, if you don't have the natural sense of spatial awareness and the reflexes to be good in arcade battles, you're never going to be good in arcade battles. But you can teach yourself to be good in realistic battles. Having, natural, I hesitate to say it, but natural fighter pilot instincts, if you like, certainly doesn't hurt if you fly in realistic battles. But it's not the be-all and end-all. People often mistakenly think that, well, I suck in arcade battles, so I'm going to be terrible in realistic. Not true. You may suck in arcade battles because you just, maybe you're older, like me. You don't have the reflexes of a rattlesnake on crack. That really, really does help in the crowded airspace of an arcade battle. But in a realistic battle, it's more about knowing what your aircraft can do. Or what your aircraft should do, depending on the situation that you're in. Time and time again, in this video, you're seeing BF-109 fighter pilots using the advantages of their aircraft to dictate the terms of the engagement to the enemy pilots, in a way that you just can't do in arcade battles. BF-109 starts at a higher altitude, dives on a P40, doesn't get the result he wants, decides, no, I don't want to be involved in this engagement. Turns all that speed back into altitude, nothing the P40 can do about it. The P40 simply has to wait for the BF-109 to make a mistake. The BF-109 pilot, as long as he starts with that energy advantage, can basically pick and choose his fights. And I'm concentrating on the example of the BF-109 purely because in this particular realistic battle that was the majority of the aircraft being flown on the German side, but it applies to every aircraft in the game. Knowledge is key in realistic battles to an extent that it just is not in arcade. And knowledge is something that you can learn. You can teach yourself to be good at realistic battles in a way that you can never do in arcade if you lack the instincts and the reflexes to do well in arcade. So it is just not true that if you're bad in arcade, you're going to be bad in realistic as well. Of course, I've still got a long way to go, but I can definitely see the improvement. I am getting better at it. And it doesn't hurt that I do know, certainly not a massive amount, but I do know a bit about the various aircraft involved. And I didn't do too badly in this one. Anyway, that's it for this one. Dipping my toes into realistic battles. I've played realistic battles before, but I didn't really do it very seriously. from now on I'm definitely expending a lot more effort on getting better at this game mode, because I feel that it's, well, with the current mess that I feel Ground Strike arcade battles are in, and the fact that the matchmaker seems to keep throwing you into nothing but Ground Strike battles over and over and over again, arcade is really starting to lose its appeal for me. Not that I'm not going to be doing any more arcade videos, but I'm definitely going to start concentrating more on the realistic battle side of things. So plenty more of these videos to come in the future. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, watch your six, and I'll catch you next time.